From horse-drawn streetcars to the electrified version we know today, and of course a subway that runs below us, this city is rich with history. In fact, public transit officially began here in Toronto 96 years ago. It was the beginning of the roaring 20s when public transit was born in Toronto. For the first time ever, all the private companies running streetcars and railways were in the control of a municipality.
The TTC was established September the 1st, 1921.
Mike Filey, a Toronto historian who has written dozens of books about this city, took me through black and white photos of the very first version of the streetcar we know today.
The first picture depicts Henry Burt Williams' horse-drawn stagecoach, which ran from the Yorkville Town Hall, which is basically Yonge and Bloor, to the St. Lawrence Market.
By the time the TTC began decades later, streetcars had been electrified.
First electric streetcar to operate in Toronto, and this is at the exhibition, and it's strictly an experiment.
The very first lines ran along Yonge Street, King and Queen, and in no time the vehicles were being used for advertising.
During the Second World War, things got really tough in terms of manpower, and so they hired women to be conductors and, in a few cases, operators of streetcars, which was unheard of. The sad part is, when the war was over, all the women were fired.
Oh.
And all the men got their jobs. Well, the men got their jobs back.
Men got their jobs back. During that era, the city was booming, and a record number of people began using the streetcars. Just 10 years later came a transit milestone that changes everything.
Now, if you were to look at the major event in the history of public transportation in Toronto, you'd go back to March the 30th, 1954.
That was the day the very first subway started rolling between Union Station and Eglinton. Back then, you got 3 tokens for 25 cents.
It made us a world city. That's a trite word to say, a world-class city. But nobody else in Canada had one. We had the first in Canada. We were on the leading edge of technology, if you like, in public transportation.
For years now, buses had been running with streetcars on the surface routes, and the subway tunnels continued being built into the 4 lines as we know them today. Although Filey believes our subway system would be much more advanced if it weren't for decades of political roadblocks.
There are politicians and there are those that know what they're doing, and they don't always meet.
Today, Toronto's transit network is overwhelmed, trying to keep up with the growing population. Right now, Line 5 is being built with the construction of the Eglinton Crosstown. Subway extensions are also in the works.
We're seeing subways, an extensive bus network, an extensive streetcar network. That plus the LRT lines that are being built, I think they will serve the City of Toronto well in the future.
In a nationwide survey we called the Canada Project, we asked, how would you describe the quality of public transit in the community you live in? Only 7% considered their transit excellent, 10% said it's poor, while 34% are calling it just adequate.
I think it's going to be a golden age for transit over the next few years, and will certainly build on the heritage that we have, this very rich heritage going back to 1921.
Well, tomorrow in this series, we take a look back at the Great Depression and explore the current housing and jobs crisis in our city. On King Street, Shauna Hunt, City News.